here. Member Booth. Member Britton. Member Britton is not
here.
Oh, she's online. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Member Davis. Here. Member Davis is here. Member Earl. Here. Member Earl is here. Member Green. Here. Member Green is here. Member Hall. I don't believe I think he's going to be off this afternoon. And we will excuse Chair Hymas had a meeting to go to at the Capitol, so we'll excuse him this afternoon. Member Kelly.
Here.
Thank you. Member Carey.
Yeah.
Member Carey is here. Member Lear. Member Lear is here. Member Longacre. Member Longacre is here. Member Reel.
Here.
Thank you. And Member Vice Chair Wood is here. All right, we will go ahead and move into our first item, 5.1, which is our public comment. I'm going to go ahead and read the disclaimer, and then we'll get started. Please note that failure to follow guidelines during public comment may result in action, including but not limited to termination of time to give comment, removal from meeting, and future restriction to public comment only. The public may sign up to share public comments at publiccomment@schools.utah.gov. The public may send written public comments to the board at board@schools.utah.gov. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per person. A comment can express support or dissent for regulatory action. Individuals should not use public comment to complain about personnel issues or attack or defame an individual. Speakers making a highly detailed or complex comment should also consider providing a written outline of their words to the board. Please remember that children may hear your comments. Be thoughtful and professional. Keep your comments appropriate for a general audience. If you have material with explicit language or content, submit such material in writing to the board at board@schools.utah.gov. And we will just outline here that we do have somebody signed up for public comment that has requested an interpreter, and we've made the accommodation for a 3-minute comment, although our normal comment is 2. So we'll start with our first public comment, Jonathan Helgeson. If you want to come up, and it looks like we do have an interpreter with us. Perfect. You're getting good at climbing over. For
Okay, well, thank you very much. My name is Jonathan Helgeson, and I am the athletic director and the extracurricular director for the Utah Schools for the Deaf. And first of all, I want to say thank you so much for letting me come here today and address you guys. As you all know, my program received a budget cut this year. And I understand that the School for the Blind received a large portion of the funding, and I respect that. However, I've noticed the ongoing disagreement between the blind program and the deaf program, and the discussion and the disagreements that were happening about the allocation of funds. And again, I respect this program, and I respect the blind program. But I do feel like we are focusing on the amount of money with the blind program, and I do feel like my program is being left out. I would like some consideration on where we can use these funds. And I haven't seen or heard any discussion or action about it and how we can address this. I have been very involved watching all of these meetings, and I was really excited to talk about my program and see what solutions we could find. And I haven't seen or heard any of the discussions in regards to the extracurricular program. And my kids need this. So I want to give you an example. We have actually used 70% of our budget, which means I only have 30% left for the rest of this year. And that's till the end of June. And that is a big concern of mine. That 70% budget that I've used, I now only have 30% for drones, robotics, academic bowl, battle of the books, and our upcoming summer activities. That is a huge part of our program. And our kids love that part. That is where they get to learn and develop language. That is where they get to learn different contexts, different content areas. And I can see how beneficial it is for our students. Without additional support, the opportunities, these programs I just listed, are not possible for our students. The money is just not there. I don't want to see that. I don't want to deprive our students of that. I am not asking for you to take money away from other programs. I'm asking for the board's help to find solutions. I know that our students are wanting a solution as well, and I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. All right, we will move to Stephanie Clancy online. And we'll make sure that she's set up.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. You can go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the time to speak today. My name is Stephanie Clancy. I'm the mother of a deaf student at JMS. Thank you so much for your service and the support you've given to the Utah School for the Deaf. The board has been listening to us and the deaf community and the parents of deaf children. So thank you for your work to align the new bills to the community response to the PEA a few months ago. And a special thanks to Chair Wood for her efforts in HB 448. My daughter began receiving services at just 7 months old. The parent-infant program and the deaf mentors supported our whole family. Even though we tried everything to get her to wear her hearing aids, she still hated them. But once she entered preschool at JMS, the teachers trained in deaf education and peers like her, she started wearing them at school within a month, then all day within a year, which is a miracle for us that would not have happened without the school. She now has cochlear implants. And even today, she struggles to cooperate at outside ear, nose, and throat doctors. But at USD, she happily lets the audiologist work with her. They're safe and trusted, and it's much more affordable than other offices. When she's in an environment that's not quiet and has no access to both English and ASL, she struggles with behavior problems. I know this would happen at a traditional public school. An interpreter alone cannot replace what USD provides: a full language environment, deaf peers, audiology support, dual language instructions, and educators trained specifically for deaf children. USD has given my daughter confidence, communication, and true access no matter what her technology is doing. So thank you for supporting families with audiology services and making it affordable. We love USD.
Thank you, Stephanie. And do we have Elisa Ensign here? Okay, seeing that she's not here, we will go ahead and conclude our public comment. So we'll move to item 5.2, which is an action item for fiscal year 2026 Utah School for the Deaf and Blind Enrichment Fund projects. And we'll invite Deborah Jacobson, Assistant Superintendent of Operations, and Susan Patton, Associate Superintendent of the Blind.
Good afternoon. Deborah Jacobson, Assistant Superintendent of Operations. As part of the budget review today, we actually have an action item, which are the enrichment activities for the blind school specifically. If we can pull up the enrichment. Yeah. Great. So as you can see here, we track how much has been spent, what the projects that have been approved, what has been spent thus far, and then highlighted there in gray those bottom 6 are the new asks coming out of Advisory Council this past month. The first one, and you can click on any of these links, they are linked, so if you want more detail on each one of them, you should be able to see that. The first one is for TVI support. This includes funding that is available to all TVIs across the state of Utah, not necessarily affiliated with USDB. So they can access these funds for any kind of instructional activities that fall under the Enrichment program. The next one are for campus field trips that are highly focused on the Enrichment program. Anything outside of regular curriculum, correct? The next two, I am never going to remember what that stands for. The ALMC, that's the Accessible Learning Materials Center, right? It's the center. So this will provide materials, supplies, and equipments that can be utilized for students across the state of Utah. Also, again, not just affiliated with USDB. And the same with the high tech. You'll have to explain what high tech is. I'm not sure. I apologize.
Chair, is that okay?
Yes, will you just please introduce yourself as you speak?
Sure. Susan Patton, Associate Superintendent for the School for the Blind. Our high tech, our assistive technology, our high tech team focuses on the devices that are needed to access higher technology or computer programs and things like that. And so we have two teams. We have our low tech, which we don't really like to say low tech, high tech, but it's easier to kind of understand that way. Our low tech is the ALMC, which is our Accessible Learning Materials Center. And those, our low tech group or the ALMC group actually designs and makes things that our students with complex needs need. And those typically are not things that are high technology needs. The high tech are the high technology needs. Those are our Braille note touches, are things that kids that are more maybe on grade level academics or are working towards that. That enables them to access their education within their schools to participate with their typical tier or their sighted peers. The high tech, that is primarily used for, not primarily, it is used for devices. And those devices, which I know that we have talked about it before, they're quite expensive. They could range from $6,000 to $12,000 to $4,000 per device. And so we have a loaning library where we send the high-tech device, a district, let's say that it's Salt Lake District might have a student, Alpine, Davis, JUAB, any district might say, we think that this student needs to have this high-tech piece of advice or technology. Our learning library or our learning materials can send that device to them on a 90-day. They have it for 90 days so they can take data and see if that device is appropriate for the student to use. Now, if we do not need that device back, we don't get it back. We let the student have it. But at the time that we need to have it back for it to go to another student, the district does purchase that because that is the local school district's, the local education agency's responsibility to purchase that. So it's a repository of devices for the high-tech team. The ALMC, however, is different in that team is actually developing different items that are very, very individualized for students. For example, we have students who are deafblind who have complex needs, and they have struggle even understanding or knowing when one routine is happening, when it's going to happen, when it's happening, and when it's finished. And we develop items or accessible things for them to actually know when something's coming up, when they're doing it, and when it's finished. but that is consumable. Those are consumable items that we make specifically for those students. Does that make sense? So they're serving two groups of students with vastly different needs, and so that's the amount of both that's needed for the low tech, which is ALMC, and then the high tech, which is the AT high tech line item. And again, those are statewide. That's not for USDB kids. It is for USDB kids on campus, but also statewide. So it's accessible for our students who are blind, visually impaired, with complex needs and without them.
Okay, thank you. So does that conclude your presentation on that?
Well,
portion.
so we've got two more there. We've got the positions. These are three key positions that in the past the agency has paid for, but mainly because the blind school at the time did not have funding to support these in the enrichment funds. But these three positions are 100% dedicated to the enrichment program. So given the opportunity, these positions will now be, or are being requested to be moved into the enrichment program to be paid there. And then we also have the ERC refresh, which I believe is for braillers.
And I can speak to that.
Okay. Just to do a refresh on the braillers to make sure that they're in operating order and available for students to use out within the state.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have Member Davis.
Thank you. I know I'm going to get this question. Can you, a couple of things, Chair, with your permission. Are the positions to support all the students statewide with the enrichment projects and activities and such? And also, if someone that's not attending school at USDB wants to access like the harmony music or something like that, how do they know it's available and how do they access it? How do they say they're interested, and are these funds enough for all the students in the state to participate, or just a portion? Is it first come, first serve, or how does it work with these types of things?
Susan, yeah, go ahead, Susan.
So the harmony music is a little bit different than the G note. Harmony music is specifically for the campus students because harmony music is a music therapy group that comes into our classes and works on IEP goals.
Okay.
Now, we have had some pushback on that, and I would say that's, I can see the reason for that pushback because it is for campus students. However, with the amount of enrichment funds that we have received now, we're looking at ways to expand that to make it available. But right now, we haven't had anybody that's asked for harmony music. But that is, I do understand that that's a concern, yes, at their school. However, G Note is accessible for all students statewide. And G Note is, for instance, we had actually our outreach director was just talking to me today about, or not today, this week, about a situation where he went in and was doing an evaluation with one of his teachers, and the student was having a pretty significant behavior issue, and the student who was visually had low vision. And they were able to pull up one of the G Note applications, and the student was able to calm himself, get back into a learning state, and then focus on what the task at hand was. G Note is different than harmony music in that G Note is accessible to families, TVIs, classroom teachers, not just TVIs, but classroom teachers across the state. I will say, though, we have not done the best job in advertising it as such. G Note, the company G Note, with their director, his name is Eduardo. We've also talked to him on, okay, maybe we need to have a workshop where we're inviting all TVIs across the state so that they know what G Note is versus what music therapy is, because it is not the same. And we really want them to have access to it, as we want families across the state to have access to it. The amount of funds that were allocated for G Note, it might have to be we might have to increase that amount for next year, but right now, Eduardo, the G-Note company, is willing to say this needs to be a statewide kids need to access this. So that's the difference with Harmony Music and G-Note. So one is accessible statewide, one is not right now, but again, we see the need that needs to be more transparent.
May I follow up quickly?
Please.
So what are the ages? Like, would these, if they were for the family, be introduced like at a PIP level, or would we wait, and is it more like a school age level? And so there's enough in the budget right now for
Yes,
everybody
well,
to-
G-Note is there. It's an international company that is doing a lot of things with different mental health situations in India, and actually with different things like veterans and people that have had some traumatic experiences, and with people with disabilities. And we were lucky within the last decade to be able to, I mean, it was 2014 probably when we first started in with G-Note. And it's expanded, and G-Note right now is saying we want all of the students who are blind or low vision to have access with it. So right now, parents in the Parent Infant Program, families in preschool, again, statewide, not just campus, all of that, and outreach, both with deafblind or outreach vision, can access G-Note. We need to do a better job in making sure that people know how to do that, and that they know how to sign up for it and whatnot. But Eduardo and G-Note are very much wanting to get this out. We might need to look again at the cost, but right now we're locked into this amount, and they're fine with keeping it at this amount for this year. That's where we're at.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. And Assistant Superintendent Jacobson, just for the public's understanding as they're looking at these numbers, can you help the public understand where the fiscal year available funds for the blind school enrichment and the deaf school enrichment, where do those numbers come from? Are those just so they understand how those are set?
Sure. So they are the state, or the deaf and blind schools individually are beneficiaries of some trust lands funding. And so that's where these actually come from. It came in land, and I don't remember how much land each one of them were allocated. These were allocated back in 1884. It's in the Enabling Act. There are 2 of 15 beneficiaries across the state that receive this funding. Every year, so they have in their separate trusts, they have certain amounts of money, and these are basically the interest proceeds that they get every year from this funding. Does that?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. All right. Yep. Please, Vice Chair Wood.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. I have to apologize. I missed advisory council. Vice Chair Booth went in my behalf. I was out of town. So right now, so we have the fiscal year available and the carry forward. Those are 2 separate line items, right? So you're currently at about 1.8. Is that accurate? Okay. And just a question: do you still have trouble gaining access to our students who are not associated with outreach and the campus? Because I know when we first started this last year, that was one of our big concerns, was we may have students that are in our traditional campus LEAs, and we don't know who they are. So how do you articulate those things that are here and offered to them?
So thank you for that question. It continues to be a challenge, but I think we're getting better at that. When I say we're getting better at that, it's because our the stakeholders, whether they're teachers of the visually impaired or parents, are giving us more access. There's not a statewide database for students who are blind, low vision, and deafblind statewide. So we have what we have on our campuses, and we have our database that has for outreach, both deafblind and our blind, low vision group. However, the students that are in other districts, larger districts, receiving their good services from the TVIs in those local districts, sometimes we have a difficult time getting access to those students, not because of really anybody's fault. It's just a matter of having access to it. So the way we have tried to expand that is we have our teachers of the TVI memo that you all receive as well, that go to all TVIs across the state, whether they are employed with USDB or they are employed with another school district. And our hope is that the TVIs and the TDBs, which are teachers of the deafblind, will then make sure that that's forwarded to their families. We also keep, if there is a family or if there's a student that comes to any one of the enrichment activities, we have information that then goes out to those families as well. So anybody that is participating, we have them also in a database that we are then corresponding there and getting. So hopefully those families are getting a kind of a double whammy, and that they're getting it from their teacher of the visually impaired and also from us. Again, we are constantly trying to expand that because we don't have a way, which I always think there's got to be a better way of doing this, right? We should have a database that has all students that are children and students, not just, we do have access to all of our parent infant program, all of our birth through age 3. We have that. We're very confident in the number of students or children that we have in that group. But we're constantly trying to hone in on who we're not getting the information to. Because the thing that gives me heartburn is when I hear from a parent, or we hear from a parent, or a group of parents that say, we don't know what's going on. And I always ask our team, how did we not know this? And then we look at the holes, we look at who we need to be communicating so that family gets the information. So I don't know that that's a very good answer, Board Member Wood, but that's how we're doing it right now. That TVI memo is going out to what we know as of today, 100% of the TVI statewide. And then they do know, we say that in the TBI memo, please be responsible in sending this to your families, because they do know, they do have their families, their caseloads, and that's how we're trying to get all of the information out. However, if anybody across the state has a better idea, we are more than happy to explore that. More than happy.
Please, go ahead.
So right now you rely a lot on past customers, so to speak, and the TVIs. And are there any students who would need and qualify for these services and the enrichment fund activities that would not have access to a TVI? Is there a gap?
Yes, there could be. A very small number, they could be receiving, so let's say that they're homeschooled, and they might not have a TVI. They might not have access to that. However, those students still can access these enrichment funds and the activities. So that could be a possible hole, which we are we're cognizant about, and know that would be an issue. The other thing would be that if a student was receiving TVI services from another TVI, possibly out of state, that a school district is paying for out of state, or that the family is paying for out of state, we wouldn't go through those TVIs. However, there are a few parents on our TVI memo that are receiving that memo because they are in those situations as well.
Vice Chair Wood. You did? Okay. All right, we will go to Member Lear.
Of the fund, and ask if I'm seeing this correctly, because my initial thought was, it's only $1 million, where can we find $1 million? But is what you're saying that these are amounts of money that come to the schools from their trust funds, but they just need permission to use it?
It's not really permission to use it, but this is what they get, an allocation every year out of their funds.
Right.
Yes.
And so you're just notifying us. is
Correct.
More with, okay, that helps me understand.
Although I do think that there is a potential motion to approve, since we're also their local board with the land overall. So in a local district, the schools will make their plans, but then their board approves all the plans. And so it would be something similar. Well, hold on, wait for your microphone to go on, please. There you go. And she's nodding her head yes for those in the public. Okay. All right. Member Davis.
Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about the 300,000 for the salaries? Originally, I thought we were not going to take salary monies out of the enrichment funds. And now is this different because we had an influx of new funds? Or did I miss, or were we going to all along and I just missed it along the way?
Well, in the past, the funds were not there and available to support positions.
Okay.
So now that there's a definite amount that is set for the blind school and it's been identified, they do have the opportunity to move staffing that has been designated for the enrichment program into that to be paid out of the trust. And it's allowable cost based on statute that we can pay salaries out of there.
And it is, and these people on salary are helping to coordinate for the services for everybody across the state, not just the students in USDB.
Correct.
Right, which
Yeah.
is
So
what I
they've been-
asked earlier. I'm just
Yeah.
double checking on that. Okay.
Yes.
And then can you, on the, maybe it would be helpful just to see which things are only for USDB campus and which things aren't for next meeting. But like for campus field trips, that would only be for USDB field trips. And then if a student lives in or attends schools that aren't USDB, are there funds for their field trips, or those are combined with field trips they take with their own school, or how does that work?
Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. So the campus field trips in years past, this predated myself, but I know that in years past there were 2 line items. One of them was extracurricular, which we still have, and then the other one was expanded core. The campus field trips were taken out of those as a lump sum, but it wasn't delineated. And I really just wanted to be transparent for the public to know these are the funds that are going to be used for campus field trips, so that they knew that this was a percentage that would be used for campus field trips that fall well within the what enrichment funds would be used for. The other thing is TVI support. Now, this is the first year that we've had the TVI support, but it is in a good faith effort to try and do the same thing for students that are across the state that have a TVI, whether that be a TVI that is employed with USDB or a TVI that is employed with another school district, for them to apply for money to do similar field trips or not even similar field trips, but what they think they would need for expanded core, to teach expanded core curriculum skills. So this is like our first, again, good faith and attempt in making things equitable there. And I look to see that things, I mean, we're in February now, we're going to need to be preparing for another enrichment cycle. And I think we'll be getting some other input. These did come from, as you remember, we did a parent and teacher and student survey, and it was very apparent that they wanted more local control or local support, which is wonderful, and that's where the TVI support came from. It also is probably going to be needed to be adjusted in the years to come or next year. $75,000 might not be enough for that, right? But it's in an attempt to make it more equitable. But the campus line item would be specifically used for our campus programs, for their field trips, because we did use donated funds in the past for some of the campus, but we don't do that anymore. And so that, and it's the amount of $35,000, which again, if you're looking at $75,000 statewide versus 35, I understand that there's some discrepancy, and there is some anxiety about that, and I think that will need to be addressed. Because we really want to make it as equitable as possible, so that people understand that these are state funds. I do, Chair, if I may, speak to the positions for just 1 second as far as time. I asked our expanded core services team, who are their time is spent in making sure planning, executing, keeping data on all of those activities that they're doing. And so I have it delineated as far as how many campus students versus how many outreach students attend all of our short-term programs, our Teen Escape programs, all of the activities that they do every single month, a couple every single month, so that you could see how many campus students attend versus how many outreach students attend. Now, I don't want it to say that, because I don't want it to, I just am trying to get away from an us versus them, because these are all students that are have rights to this money, and need to have equitable rights to this money. And I that's very heavy on me. I do firmly believe that. So, but I wanted that data to show me that we were serving more outreach with our enrichment funds than we were campus. Does that make sense? So I have that I'm happy to share with you, activity to activity, but then also as a total number of students, outreach and campus per activity.
Quick last follow-up. I'd love to see that offline. I don't really want to take any more meeting time. So I just want to make sure I understand that you're saying that this whole process is going to start actually again in April. So
Yeah.
So, and that you will be gathering input from the blind community and using that to help tweak or readjust some of this in April for moving forward again.
I don't know that we'll send out another survey, but because we just barely did that. However, I think that I will be asking some input on the amounts that are here in the line items, because again,
These were the priorities.
these were the priorities.
Okay.
This was, they were kind of arbitrary numbers that we just assigned because we'd never done this yet, or you've done this before. So just depending on the demand, we'll make adjustments with that.
That's helpful. Thank you so much. Thanks, Chair.
Yep, Vice Chair Wood.
Just for clarification, it is not new for us to use enrichment funds to pay for positions. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Okay. And secondly, is it in statute that what is the process for the distribution of this? This has to go through, because we have gotten some feedback that, well, this money should just go to the districts and let them spend it. But isn't it by statute that First Advisory makes the recommendations and then it comes to the board, and it is USDB who has kind of ownership of these funds to distribute, but they are accessible for statewide students? Am I right, or?
That is correct. So the trusts are actually for the deaf and the blind schools. And so that's why they are appropriated here. And so the deaf and the blind schools have the responsibility of ensuring that these funds are used to benefit deaf and blind students across the state. And so by adding these positions, just to add, is you need somebody to administer the program. And so that these are allowable costs to be able to be paid directly from the trust.
Okay, we have a few microphones going off. I don't know if member Carrie was here or not, but okay. There's some ghosts in our microphones. Was there anybody else that was waiting to speak to this before we have a motion? Vice Chair Wood.
I move that the board approve the fiscal year 2026 Utah Schools for the Blind Enrichment Fund projects as recommended by the Advisory Council.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve the fiscal year 2026 Utah Schools for the Blind Enrichment Fund projects as recommended by the Advisory Council. Okay, we'll get that queued up. And I'll make sure that I get the verbal. If those are, we have a few members online. If those close by can help us, we'll start with Member Britton,
Yes.
Member Kelly,
Yes.
Member Reel,
Yes.
Okay, we have that motion passes with unanimously with 12 in favor, and we have 3 absent. Okay, and actually, Member Kelly, Vice Chair Wood had just mentioned that you might have an update on some enrichment fundraiser. Can you share what you have, any new information for the board?
Yeah. Is Superintendent Hart present as well?
She is not. So if we
She's
need to
not,
wait until
okay.
she's here, we can do that another time.
Well, I'll share with you what she shared with me, but I would it would have been nice to have her for clarification. But I've been told that where we're at with this is that we can move forward. There is a fundraising program called Success Fund. A lot of the school districts use it. I used it at American Fork High School and Alpine School District that uses it quite extensively. We are just at this point, we are going to touch base and if Jonathan is still in the room, Jonathan, I'd love for you to reach out to me. We're going to get a staff member and make sure that the staff member leads out on that so that it's not one of the individuals involved in the finance part of things. At least at the school level. But I think we're close to being ready to kick off a fundraiser for those extracurricular activities, and hopefully we can fill in a lot of the gaps that they're experiencing.
Okay, thank you for that update. And with that, we will go to item 5.3, a monthly USDB budget update. And we'll just let Susan and Michelle, you guys can just stay where you're at because you're on to the next agenda item. So Deborah, we'll turn the time over to you.
Great. It's only because they know I need your support. That's the only reason why. Okay. So as of this date and time, I can attest that USDB is currently within their budget. They're spot on to where they should be hitting right now at this time of the year. So it doesn't give them a lot of wiggle room for anything that may come up that's unexpected. So it still continues to be a very tight budget. Superintendent Nelson and the 2 associates, they're doing great. They've had to make a lot of hard decisions, and but we'll continue to work through that this year to really determine what the true needs are before asking for any new money. So if there are no questions, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no lights, we will move on to item 5.4, which is the superintendent report, and we will turn the time over to our USDB interim superintendent, Darren Nielsen.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sensitive to the fact that there are things happening at the Capitol that many people in this room are probably interested in getting to. So I'll be brief in my comments today, but there are 2 things I want to address. A week ago today, I attended on our Ogden campus a portion of the parent conference, annual parent conference that we put on our blind low vision PIP program, parent infant program. And I had the privilege on Friday night of sitting at a table at dinner with a couple of sets of parents that have children that receive services through this program. One was a really young couple, reminded me of my youngest son and his wife, but full of energy, a child that was just over a year old, still trying to figure out what level of sight that the child has. And then an older set of parents, maybe closer to my age. Obviously, they're younger, but they've had 2 children go through the program. Their youngest was about a year and a half, which was why they were there last week. And then they have a child that's in middle school that had previously received services. As I talked to them about their experience with our staff and our programs, the both of them described that initially when a USDB employee comes into their home, it felt awkward. The first visit or two, and they had lots of anxieties about the things that they're going to be facing with their children. And then both of them said very quickly the USDB employee became a part of their family. And when I thought about that, it took me back to in code, we have the following statement: a student's parent is the primary person responsible for the education of the student, and the state is in a secondary and supportive role to the parent. And what I witnessed that night as I talked to those parents and others who were there, we probably had close to 50 people there, was what that exemplifies, that employees for the state board, or in this case the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind, working shoulder to shoulder with parents who have interest in getting support and understanding what they could do to better serve their children's educational needs. And it was just such an amazing event that was put on. I was so impressed with the parents that I got the chance to meet, and then again to have these parents talk about the employees that become part of their family was just so inspiring. The second thing I wanted to talk about, and this isn't news to this board, but because a lot of our constituents don't attend to all of the board activities, I just wanted to highlight a couple of actions that this board has taken in the last 24 hours so that our community understands the level of commitment and energy that this board is putting into your role as the board for the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind and your support. On Friday, February 4th, the board leadership provided a presentation of Public Education Appropriations Committee, and one of the topics there that's the most interest to employees at the USDB is the potential change on the way their salaries are calculated. And Deputy Jones had prepared some slides. Board Member Wood presented those, and I received very positive feedback about the information that was provided and the way that was presented. And then yesterday, this board, under your council or your general legislative preparation session, discussed that, and then also House Bill 448. And as I listened to that and saw the high level, if it wasn't unanimous, it was nearly unanimous support for 448, and also for requesting that staff, board leadership work to get the PEA to not advance that recommendation for changing that. I've thought back over the 8 years that I've worked for the board and various board members and personalities that boards take on, and the rarity to have a unanimous support behind efforts that the board's doing. And it just caught my attention, and I hope that the public understands and appreciates some of those actions. Again, we're not always in control of all the things. In fact, we're almost never in control of all the things in our lives or our work. But what I witnessed was the board showing wonderful support for the employees of the Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and continued support for the students and families that we serve. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Superintendent. And normally we would give the Assistant Superintendent some time to speak. Given the time, we're going to forego that piece. But I would say I did get a chance to watch the committee meeting and was able to listen to both of you give out great reports. So I would just encourage board members, if you haven't already, listen to that committee report. So with that, we will move on to item 6 and turn the time over to Chair Wood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, for give us an update. As of January, we have moved our meetings from 10 to 12 to 9 to 12. So we now have 3-hour meetings. We want to be like all the other standing committees that, have lots to do and lots of good work to happen. So we have at those meetings, we're giving time for both of our superintendents to provide updates on the schools. So just good meetings to listen to. So we'll move to our action from the board. The first one coming out of committee is that the board approve USDB Anaphylaxis Policy Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, so the motion is the board approve the anaphylaxis policy draft 1 on second and final reading. Looks like we do have some members that would like to comment or have questions. We'll start with Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. I just need to pull this up. It could be another one, but in many of these policies, I noticed that you're referencing other policies, but you're writing out the entire name, and I don't know exactly who to direct this to. So through the chair, I'm wondering if it wouldn't be better to reference it just by the number. So if you ever update the name of those policies, you don't have to go through and, I don't know if you're tracking with me, but if you rename a policy, then you're going to have to come back and readdress this policy just because you renamed another policy. It's a question and a concern, not necessarily something I want to fight over, if that makes sense. Could somebody help me understand that?
Superintendent Nielsen.
Yeah, I'd be the one to talk about that. Over the last couple of months, there's been some concerns with the way we've had hyperlinks in the policies, and the numbers were discussed last month. What this exposes is we've got some challenges on our website with the way that our policies are not just displaying, but also numbered. So if you went to our policy page or handbook, you would see names of policies, but the numbers you don't see until you click on the policy. And we're in the process of working with the communications teams here, Jeff Green, internally to try to address that in a long term. Like, we've got a big fix we need to make with that. So I went back when we were directed to add the numbers, and then thinking about the conversation about we should be able to Google search it and find the policy, right? Without the name, I couldn't find the policy. So I agree with your point. We've just got a more foundational challenge we've got to address before we could get to where we just put a policy number on there.
May I follow up?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to thank you for your explanation. I think in the interim, that's a good solution. And as long as we continue to work on that as we move forward, I'm happy to let that go. But I think there's a number of these I probably would have brought that up on. So thank you.
Yep, Vice Chair Wood.
And we had a kind of a master motion, if you recall, from last month that said we're going to renumber, refix. And so acknowledging that stuff takes time, just like us having to take out the categories of all these rules as we move ahead. We're kind of in that same space here. We're renumbering, respacing. So hopefully there'll be some grace as we get it all under control.
Okay, seeing no other lights, we'll go back to the motion. The motion is that the board approve the anaphylaxis policy draft 1 on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Britton?
Yes.
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Reel?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes 12 in favor with 3 absent. Back to you.
Thank you. For your information, 1.5, the Bridges to Community Readiness Post-High Program Policy, we have moved that forward to the February meeting and may even move it to the March meeting as we're pursuing just better understanding as a body as to the cost of the program, the students that are involved, how it compares to community resources. So just watch for that. So our next one is 1.6. Oh, thanks. Maybe I'll move to yours instead of my committee one. Thank you. Sorry. All right, 6.7, the motion is the board approve the Emergency Safety Interventions Policy Draft 2 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve the Emergency Safety Interventions Policy Draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Sorry, I appreciate you letting me have the floor. 7.5. There's just some of these that I'm wondering, should we link them to code? And through the chair to Superintendent Nielsen. Like seclusion may not exceed 30 minutes. I believe that's codified in our state now. Is it not? I'm just wondering if some of these things should be linked to code so A, parents know and understand, B, teachers know and understand, and that if that code ever changes, then we're prompted that this was something that we did because of the code, not because the LEA decided to choose 30 minutes. If I'm speaking in a way that allows you to understand my concern.
Go ahead, Superintendent Nielsen.
Yeah, what I was looking for is we've got lots of references to code and other rules throughout this, and I wondered if that was already cited somewhere earlier. I don't know if Dr. Tanner, who helped do the heavy lifting on this policy, knows the answer to that. But you'll see that several throughout the policy there are references to code. I just not sure why it's not why this one we didn't do that.
And it looks like it's listed at the very top of the policy. If you go to the very top, if we can slide up.
Yeah,
It's-
1.2.
Yeah, so it's 53G-8-301
Oh,
at the very, very top.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's the code, I believe, and that's the code that's the emergency safety code. So it may not be in the line item, but I see what you're saying, like where that rule's coming from.
That I think that's perfect. I don't know if somebody like or a parent reading this would connect that. Just because I was reading all of the connections and I was like, why not this connection? Because it's bold, it's out there. So it's just a thought. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, seeing no other lights, we'll go back to the motion. Oh, okay, we'll pause. Member Carey.
Just real quick it was back on 7, and we ran into this where we did our seclusion rule and then had feedback, and we had to go back as a board and revisit it. And one of the things we had to revisit was in 7.4.2, you reference, with this direct line of sight. And one thing that we had to tweak in our own rule was that, that could include, direct line of sight through video monitoring. Is this designed to be like a physical direct line of sight, or could it also encompass somebody looking at a monitor in the seclusion room or the seclusionary space?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Dr. Michelle Tanner, Associate Superintendent of the Deaf. I wanted to reference, first of all, it's a physical presence. So we would not be doing this through video conferencing because, in fact, quite frankly, we put this in as it was listed from the board language. We do not have any of these rooms, and we have no intentions of developing them at any given point. But we put it in there to align with the rule.
Okay, and the rule it emphasizes the physical direct line of sight, and that's what
Yes.
you wanted to emulate.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vice.
Okay. The motion is that the board approve this emergency safety interventions policy, draft 2 on second and final reading. Let's go ahead and vote.
Brinton's a yes.
Thank you, Member Britton. Member Kelly.
Yes.
Member Reel.
Yes.
Member Reel is a yes. That motion passes unanimously with 3 absent. Back to you, Chair Wood.
Thank you. And number 6.8, I move that the board approve the student conduct and discipline policy draft 2 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion is that the board approve the student conduct and discipline policy draft 2 on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Can I take us please to 9.6.3? It says the educational director will collaborate with parents when determining consequence decisions. Does that mean that we're going to ask whoever this individual is to call parents every time they're issuing a consequence for students in real time? Because sometimes it's not logical. Depending on the situation, I can understand why we would consult with parents. But let's say a student wears inappropriate clothing and we say, you have two choices. You can wear this t-shirt that we have here available for you, or you can call home and get a piece of clothing from home. But can you just help me understand that better?
Superintendent Tanner?
Yes. The answer to that is yes. We have enough staff and we do contact every consequence that they have. And we've been doing that for years. Yeah. So we
Perfect.
contact with them. We have because of the nature of our school and the connections we have with the families, we do actually do that.
Perfect. That's all I need to know.
Do we have any comments on that? Okay, seeing no other comments, we'll move back to our vote. The motion is that the board approve the student conduct and discipline policy draft 2 on second and final reading. We'll go ahead and vote. Member Britton,
Yes.
Member Kelly,
Yes.
Member Reel,
Yes.
I don't know that he'll even notice. Okay, that motion passes unanimously with 3 absent. Chair Wood.
Thank you. Item 6.9, I move that the board approve the swimming therapy pool use policy draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve the swimming therapy pool use policy draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no comments or questions, we will move to a vote. Member Britton.
Yes.
Thank you, Member Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you, Member Reel.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, that motion passes 11 in favor with 1 abstention, being Member Carey, and 3 absent. Chair Wood.
Thank you. Item 6.10. This is when I knew we had finally achieved ultimate LEA status, because I went to my local board policies to see if we had a bed bug policy, which we do. So we have reached, we are finally there. I move that the board approve the bed bug prevention and response draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion is that the board approve the bed bug prevention and response draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's move to a vote. Member Britton.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Kelly.
Yes.
And Member Reel.
Yes. And no to bed bugs.
That's why we have the policy, right? For venom. Okay, that motion passes unanimously with 3 absent. Chair Wood.
Thank you. Our final action, 6.11, I move that the board approve the video remote interpreting policy draft 1 on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion is that the board approve the video remote interpreting policy draft 1 on second and final reading. Member Bogus.
Thank you. I'm not certain, Vice Chair Bollinger, who to direct this question for, but I noticed a few times in here, it talks about VRI is basically only reliable with reliable internet, and that you have to have reliable internet. But what I'm not seeing in here is how we ensure we have reliable internet. Is that just something that's always there?
You can figure that out. I'll pay you.
You might be the next millionaire if you
Yeah,
figure that
maybe.
out.
I guess sometimes I've learned so much interfacing in this space with USDB because I don't think about things like that it's not always cognizant in my mind until I'm thinking about something like this and I go, oh, I never really. So what is the plan if there's not reliable internet? What's the backup plan? What's the I guess I just am very concerned that if this is something needed right now, what's the plan if there's not reliable internet?
Okay, Assistant Superintendent Tanner.
Yes. So if there's no reliable internet, the interpreting's not happening. So that's exactly what happened. So this is also in working with, in collaboration with the districts. So the districts are responsible for providing that interpretation, that internet access, so that we can provide the interpretation. So they have to give us access into their system to be able to do it. And that's probably why that's mentioned more often there, because of that. Because generally, all of us believe that if a meeting doesn't have internet access, a phone's not going to cut it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for that. I really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other lights, we'll move to a vote on the motion that the board approve the video remote interpreting policy, draft 1, on second and final reading. Member Britton?
Yes.
Member Kelly?
Yes.
Member Reel?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes unanimously with 2 absent.
That concludes our work.
All right, perfect. So that concludes item 6. And we do not have anything to cover in item 7. No unfinished business today. So with that, I do want to just make a note and a message to all of our USDB staff. We know you're working so hard to work on these policies, and we know it's a lot of work, and I know we go through these quickly, but that's only dependent on the hours and hours and hours that you spend working on those and trying to make those in compliance. So thank you for your work to you, Superintendent Nielsen, and all of the staff. We really appreciate it. So with that, I will Member Lear.
If this turns into
Your mic is not working.
Sarah, if this turns into a longer discussion, I will postpone that. But I'm just interested that the USDB is doing policies but not rules. Did you ever have that discussion?
Superintendent Nielsen?
Yeah, I don't know if my answer will be satisfactory. I just know that my previous 21 years working in LEAs, they were always called policies, the LEAs that I worked in, district policies. And so that's the term that all of our policy handbook has. So we didn't take on changing that. If there's some direction to move from policies to rules, we're open to that discussion.
And again, last comment, I maybe that works. Given that this USDB is directly under the board, I'm wondering if policies adequately bind your community legally versus board rules. So just a thought. I don't want to make things more complicated, and the board doesn't need more rules, but I just had that thought. So I didn't know if you had that discussion. You might just check it out with the AAGs sometime. Thanks.
Yeah, it sounds like we can look into it, see if they have rulemaking authority, I guess would be the question, compared to policy. Yep. Okay, we'll definitely look into that. Okay, with that, I will seek a final motion. Okay, motion is to adjourn. We have a second. All in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Replay capture. We are adjourned for the day. Thank you for your work.